Thank you, and good morning, everyone. The class one, where the audio was not clear, we've re-recorded that, and it's posted on our YouTube page if anyone cares to hear what the class was about. The I want to explain that as you know, I use a lot of videos in my class, and there's multiple reasons why I do that. But what I want you to understand that I look at many more videos than I present in class, and in my bibliography, you'll find links to some of those other videos that you might want to see if you want more information about Mussolini or Hitler or any of them. They're all quite good. They repeat a lot. And so I kind of select clips that are representative of what's there in the other videos as well, and to do it in a compressed time frame so you get the story. I sent a message last week to say there are things that I'm hoping you will see in these videos that are commonalities that are that will come, from one strongman to the next. It's important to understand that the strongmen have never had a reputation for being good people. So there's been many different terms applied to them. It's important to know all those terms are synonyms. A strongman is a dictator, is an emperor, is a president. I mean, it's like today, one of the big things in the legal world is the unitary president. That is a phrase that is a euphemism for dictator. It says the president is all powerful. And you're seeing it in some of the court cases that are taking place. In Trump 1, the court allowed Trump to divert funds that were appropriated by Congress for one thing and to use it on another thing. They're now suggesting that the president has the right to decide not to spend money on foreign aid. That's not how it's supposed to work. We're supposed to have three equal branches, each with its duties and responsibilities. Congress appropriates the money. The executive is to administer the distribution of that money and to use it for what Congress has passed laws for. But now we're hearing that, well, wait a second, the president has power over foreign policy. So the president can decide not to spend money because it counters his foreign policy. That's some real mental gymnastics to take power from Congress and put it into the executive branch so that the executive branch becomes a dictatorship. It's just like placing troops in different cities. If I'm putting together a plan of attack and I have the capacity and the ability to stage troops in the land that I plan to attack, I certainly would take advantage of it. Get them in place so that you can put down any protest against what is happening. So some of the things that I want you to observe with Mussolini is that he's a recalcitrant child who's raised by a violent father. He is sent off to a boarding school because he's too difficult to handle. In boarding school, he becomes a rapist. He he rises to power while the country is mourning the death of over 2 million people killed in World War I. They're also going through economic difficulties because of the war cost and because the Great Depression is starting to unfold. So he comes to power with the idea that he's going to make Italy great again, and he's going to draw upon the history of the Roman Empire to gin up nationalism and make himself the king. And you're going to see the people in power, political power, acquiesce and not become reticent in being able to use their tools to oppose what Mussolini is doing. And they are going to really facilitate his rise to power, in fact, inviting him in to take power. So we'll see them, kind of cower before him. And while they do still have the military power to have opposed him. As we look at some of these videos, we may be interrupted with some commercial breaks. They'll run for a few seconds and then I'll be able to skip it and move ahead.
Long considered a buffoon, a bumbling brute, an insignificant tyrant. Very much overshadowed by Adolf Hitler, the man who dragged Italy into World War II is one of history's most famous dictators. One of the most derided as well, Mussolini. On April 29, 1945, the day before Hitler's suicide, his body was displayed in public in a Milan square. He, his mistress, and other leading fascists had been executed by Italian partisans. His corpse was mutilated and strung up by its feet for all to see. And yet, several months earlier, in this very spot, Mussolini had been worshipped as a living god. They called him Il Duce, the leader. 100 years ago, in 1922, he seized power in Italy through violence and deception and invented fascism. For more than 20 years, he imposed totalitarianism on his people, a strategy admired by dictators around the world.
He was a genius. I still make the Roman salute.
Definitely.
It wasn't like this, but like this, the Roman salute.
Those years were years of pain and suffering.
I'm always struck by how these charismatic figures manage to bewitch so many people.
This is the story of a power-hungry megalomaniac who wanted to change the soul of Italy and led his people to disaster. This tragic story begins in the 1920s in beautiful Italy, the land of Michelangelo, Dante, and Verdi. A glorious past, a nation in crisis. The average income was 3 times lower than in France and Great Britain. To escape poverty, millions of Italians chose to emigrate. Score settling, assassinations, riots. Since Italy's victory alongside France and Great Britain in 1918, civil war had undermined democracy. Farmers everywhere grabbed uncultivated land. Workers started strikes and lashed out at their bosses. During the Great War, they had been promised social reforms, which never materialized. In Italy, trade unions and leftist parties united against the bourgeoisie. Facing them, this dapper man, Benito Mussolini, the strikers' arch enemy, the man who wanted to transform Italy. The teacher turned journalist had recently created a movement, fascism. In this Milanese palazzo lent to him by local industrialists. Fascism, for fasces, a symbol of power in ancient Rome. He adopted the Roman salute and made his men wear a uniform, the black shirt, sometimes with a skull on their helmets. Their weapons, these clubs, or manganello, that were used to terrorize the left. Their motto, me ne frego, I don't give a damn. Mussolini had 300,000 men and the streets were theirs. Replacing the strikers, they drove the trams and kept the streets clean. Most were war veterans, advocates of extreme violence. They dreamt of revolution, a revolution of the right, to put the country in order and make Italy a world power.
In case you don't know, the black shirts became the brown shirts in Germany, and today we refer to them as ICE. Okay, so Mussolini's, as a child, was a thug, and his family sent him off to a boarding school because he was too difficult to handle. And there he becomes a rapist. I just want to point this out just for consideration. They've been in a war, a horrible, brutal, ugly war, and they're exhausted by war. And the presumption is that now that war is over, people would have the sense of, we don't want to go to war again, and the brutality as an answer to a problem is not really a solution that's got any merit. But no, what happens is people want short-term answers to what are very much long-term problems. And military violence becomes a mechanism to get to the solution quickly, whether it be the right solution or the wrong solution. We get there quickly. So you get frustrated with all that's going on and what it will take to change. And people say, I don't care anymore. I just want this fixed. And so they become very susceptible to returning right back to warfare.
In one of them, He was born in this valley in the village of Predapio in Romagna, a socialist stronghold 2 hours from Venice. He described his childhood as tough, with his pious schoolteacher mother and his anarchist blacksmith father considered dangerous by the police. Like his father, Benito Mussolini spent several spells in prison for revolutionary agitation, including in 1911 when Italy invaded Libya and committed atrocities against its people. An anti-colonialist, Mussolini led a riot to block the movement of troops to Libya. His enemies at the time were those of his father, the army, the bourgeoisie, and the church. Although,
as confusing as this may be, it's important to know he starts out as a socialist, favoring issues to the left. He then transforms into a right-wing Nazi fascist dictatorship.
those who would later support him. A strange character. He read a lot and played the violin alone in the countryside for hours on end. An odd mixture of strength and sensitivity. But he was unable to control his violence. As a teenager, he raped one of his neighbors and later wrote about it in a book. Then he married a local girl, Rachele Guidi. He proposed to her gun in hand and threatened to kill her, her parents, and himself if he was turned down.
So Mussolini is a chameleon. He starts off as a socialist before the war. He becomes an anti-communist, and after the war, he becomes a fascist. And he capitalizes on post-war resentments.
Italy's sacrifices had not been sufficiently rewarded by the Allies. 600,000 dead, 1 million wounded, and a mutilated victory, according to the expression of the time. Now a nationalist, he was an advocate of violence. The fascists saw war as the great test of nations. This is his desk. He ran the newspaper Il Popolo d'Italia, which he founded in Milan with the help of a group of industrialists. 3 years after the Russian Revolution of 1917, Italy's business community now saw him as a bulwark against communism. In return, Mussolini lent them his men to break strikes and protect their property. Marta Badoni's father was an industrialist and member of the Italian Fascist Party.
This is my father with his funny hat. We lived through violence, that's for sure. He was kicked out of his factory by the workers. We were extremely frightened of the Russians. That was Italy. We were afraid the Russians would eat our children.
I think my father saw Mussolini as the man capable of restoring order in the chaos that was Italy.
One of the other things that I would like for you to just take note of, and that is the deterioration of the rule of law.
The March on Rome, a lesson in how to stage a coup for budding dictators and, in particular, Hitler, who watched attentively from Germany. In Naples, the great city of the South, 40,000 fascist militants attended the party's national convention. Elected as a deputy, along with 30 or so black shirts 18 months earlier, Mussolini decided to hasten history and launch an attack on Rome to take control of the country. For months, his supporters had urged him to go for broke. At a mass rally in Naples, Mussolini launched an ultimatum from the podium. Either the government will be given to us, or we will march on Rome. It was a risky gamble. If the government sent in the army and decided to open fire, it would be the end for him and prison. That very evening, playing the respectable politician, he left his raging supporters in Naples and returned to Milan. Then waited. The insurrection was planned for October 27th. Some made a head start. Without waiting for the 27th, cities rose up. Pisa, Cremona. While in Milan, carrying on as if it was business as usual, Mussolini went to his newspaper offices and attended the opera with his wife. In fact, he had already given the order to march on the capital. The situation could have turned violent at any moment. Surprisingly, on reaching Rome, the fascists encountered no resistance. After 3 years of civil war, the state was in disarray. Everything depended on the king. Prime Minister Facta had asked him to declare a state of siege and send in the army. But fearing he would be swept from power and to avoid chaos, Victor Emmanuel refused to use force. 5 days after the ultimatum, he offered ministerial posts to Mussolini and 3 of his deputies. In Milan, Mussolini turned his nose up at what he considered a miserable plate of lentils. For him, it was either complete power or chaos. Italy was on the brink of explosion. Business leaders voiced their official support for Mussolini. And the king yielded. He asked Mussolini to form a new government. Here is Mussolini arriving in Rome. He had waited years for this moment. Having marched from Naples, the militants turned out to welcome him. With Mussolini, their life would soon change for good. In a top hat, the young thug from Predappio, the street brawler, far more subtle than he appeared, was received by the king and appointed as prime minister. To flatter his people, Mussolini reminded them they were the heirs of the Roman Empire and the Renaissance. Emigration abroad is over, he said. No more stereotypical images of Italians, macaroni, mandolin players, late trains. For 20 years, to make up for lost liberties, Il Duce offered them symbolic compensation.
I think the fact there was someone who said, "Hey guys, we're good, strong, numerous, we're the best," suited us. We who had always felt like we were the class dunces.
che sono nate le grandi religioni, le grandi filosofie, la grande poesia e un impero.
Yes, I see myself as a descendant of the Roman Empire because they loved their country as much as I do.
E se domani la rivoluzione chiamerà, voi rispondete come un solo uomo.
For me, he was the Italian soldier because he wanted to expand Italy's territory. You're too young to remember, but we were a very poor country. In some parts, people only ate polenta.
Mussolini, the new Caesar, one of the world's first populists, although the term was yet to be coined. Before his people's astonished eyes, he promised to make Italy great again.
This is the author of Strongmen.
I realized that this was not politics as usual.
Raise your right hand, everybody. Do you swear that you're going to vote for Donald Trump tomorrow? Raise that hand. I love you. I love you.
He had talked about being president for many, many years with his advisor of the time, Steve Bannon, who is a white nationalist and unabashed racist. Steve Bannon considers himself a student of history, and he likes to think that he knows the cycles of history in terms of resentment and racism, and in this case, he was correct.
This is Italy in 1922. These marching men are charter members of a new Italian political party, the Fascists, founded and led by a flamboyant ex-editor, ex-army corporal, ex-socialist, Benito Mussolini. His movement numbers 1 million members, including uniformed black shirts, and Mussolini successfully forces his leadership on the Italian king and people. Despite the fact that 80% of Italians still support the constitutional monarchy, his threats of violence and revolution win him the office of premier. On his first anniversary, with the aid of gunfire, kidnapping, and castor oil, he is absolute dictator.
At the time Mussolini came on the political scene in 1919, Italy was a limited democracy. People had the vote, women could vote. And Mussolini came in as a revolutionary, as a rabble-rouser, to completely shake things up. One of the most crucial moments of authoritarian capture is when traditional elites invite the authoritarian in the making into power. Fascism was a very violent movement. The political establishment, these traditional conservatives, were so frightened of the continuation of the violence that they actually invited him to become prime minister. He was invited into the office, and they thought that he could be contained and he would kind of do their dirty work, and then they could control him. And tragically, that was not to be. He attacked the press. He attacked democracy as something that wasn't necessary. He joked about having term limits removed. His arch enemy, Giacomo Matteotti, the leader of the Socialist Party, was seen being taken away by fascist thugs. Eventually, his body was found, but it was a huge outrage, and a special investigation was launched with a prosecutor. And in the course of this, Mussolini's career looked like it was over, and he was being asked to resign. And to end this, he declared a dictatorship in January 1925. He changed the special prosecutors. The assassins were given light prison sentences and eventually pardoned, because dictators love to pardon criminals. and Italian society was never the same again. There are times in history when figures appear who are able to coalesce existing hatreds and anxieties that exist in a culture and form from them a movement through rallies, through propaganda, through promises to them.
We will be ending the AIDS epidemic and curing childhood cancer.
Only they know the truth. Only they can fix the problems.
We are finally putting America first.
My name is Cheryl.
Italian Renaissance. Even though previous governments had undertaken similar projects, everyone applauded the new Superman. Mussolini, the strategist, tackled unresolved issues, such as the dispute with the Vatican that dated back to the unification of Italy when the Pope was dispossessed of his states. Mussolini, the anti-clerical leader, agreed to reintroduce the crucifix in schools, established Catholicism as the state religion, and recognized the sovereignty of the Vatican. The Lateran Accords, a miracle for Catholics, that is, a great many people. Well before anyone else, he understood the power of images. Cameras now followed his every step. In 1924, as he was toppling democracy, Mussolini entrusted the Luce Institute with the task of projecting a positive image of the state, or rather, himself. Movie theaters all over the country screened newsreels about Il Duce, which he signed off. Cinematography is the strongest weapon, he declared. The opportunity as well to promote the social policies of a regime that simply dressed up old things as something new by reorganizing existing systems.
Dressing up old things as something new. And that's part of my argument that we relate to things as unprecedented that are indeed not. This has happened before.
The multitude, like a woman, is made to be violated, declared Mussolini in private.
Io mi preoccupo tutti I giorni, dalla mattina alla sera, lavorando senza contare le ore di lavoro, mi preoccupo di dare il massimo lavoro possibile a tutti gli operai italiani. Amore, così anche per la pace bisogna essere almeno in due.
In the early 1930s, he won over a large part of the population, including some of his future victims. Before Mussolini turned on them, Jews too admired him, such as young Silvana Aiucai in Rome.
I sang it too. It was amusing, actually. What else would you like to know? It seems incredible after 82 years. But I was caught up in the enthusiasm too. We were all happy. I didn't know what he was talking about. Of course he was fascinating. He had a real talent. Like all dictators, he was a great talker. He was talented. That's the way it was.
And we're going to see how Italy becomes a police state, and that could be an example of where America is today.
Unlike in the 20s, his enemies were no longer just the socialists and communists, but all those who did not conform, who thought for themselves and refused to kowtow to the dictator. In this totalitarian society, Il Duce was everywhere. He controlled everything.
To get a job in the public sector, you had to be a party member.
When we went to vote, it was like voting in public. We were down below, and they were above us, and so they could see what we marked on the slip.
In every village, the party, as well as the local administration, was run by the black shirts. They watched every family.
They would say, the pharmacist in that street is an opponent.
A subversive.
Either we convert him or scare him so much that he stops spreading his propaganda, even if it meant beating him up.
Either you're with us and you do what we tell you to do, or you'll have problems. You'll lose your job. You'll lose your benefits.
Mussolini scared people, that's all. You could be thrown in jail simply for saying, fascism is a disgrace.
To criticize Il Duce was to attack Italy. Deviant elements were denounced, arrested, and imprisoned.
One of the items that seems to be endemic to the strongmen is that everything is never enough. They need more. And in that going for more, they eventually cross a line that then transforms everything. And it's amazing how quickly it can all change.
Mussolini was now over 50. He ruled from his office at the Palazzo Venezia, surrounded by sycophants, such as the Grand Council of Fascism, whose members he selected among his friends in the party and the government, and who never contradicted him. He still had the support of the business community, the army, and the church. He had it all. But it was not enough. Mussolini was never satisfied. He played with his associates more and more, humiliating them. A man with a voracious sexual appetite, he converted the top floor of the palace for his mistresses. According to his private secretary, he had on average one woman a day. Selected from letters he received from all over Italy, most female admirers had a brief 15-minute encounter with Il Duce. He was obsessed with turning Italy into a nation of fascists. He communicated with the multitude from his balcony. In 1935, he made one of his most important speeches here, the declaration of war against the Empire of Ethiopia. He believed it would be the start of a colonial war that would test the new man and revitalize his regime. Ethiopia, the war many had been waiting for and Mussolini had dreamt of for years. Before colonizing Libya in 1911, Italy had already tried to take over the Empire of Ethiopia in the 19th century, attacking from Eritrea and Somalia. But it failed miserably. For the former anti-colonialist, Italy too had a right to a place in the sun.
Okay. Well, that's the story of Mussolini and the review of the techniques used by the strongmen. Okay, Dave.
Please use the raise the hand function if you have any questions. And Sal, got a question. Did he come up with the phrase "Make Italy Great Again"?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. I would suspect somebody on Madison Avenue had something to do with that.
Because that was on the video.
Probably, I know. Probably a talking point from Washington. Yeah.
Does anybody else have any questions or comments?
Well, yeah, Ralph does. He doesn't know how to do the raise the hand thing, so let him.
Ralph, if you unmute. Ralph?
There he is. Okay.
There it is. Time, but I just was going to offer that the parallels are. You did a great job picking out stuff, Sal. That is the parallel. Okay, I mean, so much of that was Trump, and then when you had Ruth Ben-Ghiat talk about it, it was bang. That Mussolini really fits. Now we'll see about these other dictators, but Mussolini really fits. Big chunky guy, but the other thing I wanted to offer was having grown up. I was an Eisenhower baby, so I grew up in the 60s and 70s, and the threat of communism was always something I was taught to see.
Ralph, you're freezing up.
Yeah, you froze up there, Ralph.
Yeah.
I'm gonna just kind of speculate as to what you're saying, that communism was presented to us.
Oh, he's back. He's back. He's moving again.
Go with it.
Bob, you want to try it again?
Go ahead, Ralph.
Yeah, well, just to finish the thought, that's how it was presented to us. It's a threat to you, the people, you personally, and your freedom, and we're going to stand up to it. But really, they're in the background all along. Look who responded initially to Mussolini. The people with capital, the people with power responded against him. And so I was just struck again by that, by the way it was taught to me versus the way it actually happened in reality in history. It's a threat to business and capital and money and factory owners and that side of society.
Yeah, no, I think that when you really, I've talked about the the triangle trade and how that set the example for business. And we're talking about going back into the 1300s and so long ago. So this system that comes about is for people who are making money and want to make more money. So one of the key factors was to keep labor costs down.
Right. Right.
Well, when someone comes along that wants to fight for labor to get a bigger piece of the pie, that becomes a threat to the 1%.
Yeah.
Communism, it's important to understand, communism is a thought from Karl Marx, who's looking at industrialization and what is the downside of it. There's very poor and very rich. And so Karl Marx has this idea of power to the people kind of thing. Let them take ownership of everything. Well, what he's really talking about is a fantasy of going back to something that is the equivalent of the hunter-gatherer society. It's not something that can work. So it gets modified into socialism. So it's, but, and mind you, when you talk about political, social, economic philosophies, these don't come with a list of specifications. And if a country says, yeah, okay, we're going to go that way, we're going to follow all these specifications, they're going to do a lot of different things with it.
Right.
The idea that Joseph Stalin was somehow the champion of the working man is absurd. He was a military brute, and that's how he ruled. So he was simply trying to get a devastated, gutted country with shelter and water. I went to Moscow in '91, and it was during a cold period for them, not deep winter, but it was cold. And they were performing maintenance on the hot water system. There is one big hot water system that feeds everybody, right? It was the most inexpensive, efficient way to get hot water to the people living and in Kyiv. Same thing in Kyiv. It was that. So what I'm saying is it was desperation. And it was, we got to get heat, hot water, shelter, food, medicine, the basics. Was that communism? No way. So it was military, right? Strong arm. So these things, though, we still live with them to get people ginned up. These guys are socialist, right? And there are people who respond to that who really don't know what socialism means. And
look at Donald Trump, who no one could ever accuse of giving a damn about labor or working people. And yet the man manages to rile people up enough and infuriate enough people and perceived enemies, and it's always the same people. And he gets a significant cut, if not the majority, of the working man and labor. Since labor is so small in the United States, you almost can't refer to it anymore. But you can refer to working people, and they poll for working people, and a boatload of them went for this demagogue named Trump. It's astonishing because Mussolini could point to his history and say, well, I've been for the working man. I'm among you and all this. Shake his fist, and they buy it. They buy it with Trump, and he has nothing. He has nothing to indicate he's ever given a damn about working people.
Yeah,
Unbelievable.
It's the same techniques, but one thing that I would want you to consider is that Trump tried to run for office before and got nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
But something happened that got him somewhere in 2015. And what I argue is that it's the crash of 2008.
Mm-hmm.
And no one goes to jail. So there's a very angry population that is just so frustrated, and was terribly hurt, that Trump came along and he was the equivalent of poking the finger in the eye kind of thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm sure it was crucial. And they could be riled up in the future for things like Benghazi and all this imagined BS with Hillary Clinton as a criminal and on and on.
And that's why I think Gail is going to resolve it all.
Gail.
Oh, I'm not going to. I'm not going to resolve it all. More of another question. You've presented a chilling, detailed analogy, the blueprint, if you will, for the rise of Mussolini, and it's horrifyingly analogous to what's going on. And I'd be interested for you to apply the same critical analysis and eye to the fall of Mussolini to give us a blueprint for what's next here.
Yeah, no, I think about it a lot, and inevitably there's going to be a catastrophe. Again, this is my opinion, and that's all it is. But it's like you're in a relationship with a gambling drunk spouse beater, and and you've given it 7 years to see if this is going to change. It ain't going to change. And you either get out of there or you get killed. I mean, it's that's what so what could happen? Well, I'm terribly worried about nuclear war. I doubt that Donald really understands what's involved in it. I mean, he could be so limited that he could think that just fire them off, and so they'll get angry. We just have it's just a war. I think he could certainly underestimate all of that and put us in that path. And not with any thought, not as part of a strategy, not as, I mean, it would be, remember, this is an impulsive person. So what impulse will come along? It could be that we would get to a point of civil war again. It could happen. There could be states that say we've had enough and we're going to secede and form our own country. I mean, that's possible. I have difficulty coming up with any scenario where Trump would allow midterm elections. It would put too much at risk. And it's not like he would think about it, but the people around him would think, we can't have midterm elections, because if we have midterm elections, we then become susceptible to impeachment and all of that. So I can't, I look at things that are being put in place to facilitate that. And when they immediately fired JAG officers, when they got rid of inspectors general, when you decapitate the FBI, you decapitate the Department of Justice. All of this is foundational for seizing power. And that means no midterms. And I could see that happening.
Worst fear.
Does
That's
the
not a
redistricting?
blueprint. That's not a blueprint for getting out of this, Sal.
No, yeah. Again, it's what happens, Gail, is that as these things are unfolding, and there are people raising flags, saying, "Wait a minute, there's consequences to what you're going to do. Don't do it," and they're ignored. It's like, okay, I've detected the cancer and I'm warning you, and you don't really want to do what needs to be done. In my world, I feel I was screaming what was going to happen in 1991 with the Gulf War. The first one, that there will be a cascading set of events that will be so destabilizing that we'll be ripe for a dictator to come to power. And of course, I was told I was nuts, but yeah, when once you open a door, it's like the rule of law. Once you open the door and say, well, I'm going to just violate the law, we're in trouble.
We are in trouble, and it's hard to know what to do. And I haven't demonstrated and walked in the streets since the 70s, but I'm going out now on no King's marches and stuff because I feel like it needs to be visible that people are out there who don't agree. But fear is the big tool. I'm afraid every day I get seems like dozens of sign this petition, send money for that, all of this. It's not like it's invisible. It's so blatant and clear and obvious, but I'm a little bit afraid to go sign petitions and things. And now there's this watch list that's being generated where half of the population qualifies for being on the watch list. And it's like, what do we do?
Yeah, I keep wondering if we're going to be able to continue on with classes.
I know.
Sure. Yeah, it's I think even though I may not think it's going to change much, I go out and protest too, but because you got to do something as opposed to just doing nothing.
If everybody does nothing, then it's over. If
Right.
everybody does a little bit, then a big bit happens and it makes a difference. But there's such a common sentiment that either it's too big, there's my little bit doesn't count, what can I do, it doesn't matter, or I'm afraid. If I stick my neck out, I'm afraid. And those are two very compelling incentives.
Well, and one thing from the strategist of the Project 2025 people is that it's okay for people to protest until we've had enough of it. And we now have our troops in place. And what happens is once they get out there with the baton and start crushing skulls, the protests fall apart. The great example was Xi's crackdown at Tiananmen Square. So yeah, it's not a good picture. Yeah.
But Bob can resolve it. So Bob, do you want to
Yeah.
And then if you could turn your video on.
Okay. Well, I'm pressing on it, but nothing's happening.
Okay, that's all right. Go ahead.
That's okay, just go.
On a slightly different topic, I have to say, Sal, I'm not quite as pessimistic. The midterms are in about a year from now. I'm not as pessimistic as you are. although I'm open to your opinion, certainly. But on a slightly different topic, what impresses me in reading the book Strongman and a few other things is the similarities among different strongmen who have come to power, starting with perhaps with Mussolini, and the things they have done, and right up until the present day. For example, making it difficult for universities to function. Not necessarily closing them, but making it very difficult. And we've seen that happening here. Making it harder for people to protest what's going on. And you might be right. Maybe the troops are getting into place in certain important cities where protests might come into being. That's hard to accept that it's going on in America. But there's a lot of strange things going on. And there were a lot of strange things going on in America 100 years ago, and we liberated ourselves from it. For example, during the last 2 years of President Wilson's term, he was very sick. And during that time, and his wife seemed to be functioning as his chief of staff. This is all contained in a book called Midnight in America that came out 2 years ago. People who had the wrong opinions were actually tarred and feathered. And there are pictures in the book of people who were tarred and feathered because of incorrect opinions. The Postmaster General was opening mail, and if magazines or whatever mail was coming to your home, the Postmaster General had the right to stop them from coming in, and in fact, did put an end to it. You couldn't receive Mother Jones, for example. I suppose that would be one of the magazines that would be on the list. And other quote unquote subversive things. And now we used to call it subversive. Now we call things terrorist. A lot of things are terrorism. And you can get in trouble for emitting terroristic attitudes. But returning to my main point, it's amazing with Mussolini and Hitler and others how similar the strategies are to obtain and hold on to power. And it's all outlined, a lot of it is outlined in that book that you recommended, Strongman.
Yeah, that's, why I'm, wanting to suggest that as we watch these videos that you see the similarities, that you pick them out. There's many of them. Not all of the strong men are going to check off everything on the box, but enough of them. A lot of them were beaten by their fathers too. Hitler's one, and sent to boarding schools. Trump's a boarding school guy. But I think there's you can see these things fitting in place. And, but as I tried to say last week, there are, or the week before, whatever it was, there are conditions external to the individual that when those circumstances come into being, it makes the ground fruitful for the strong man to come to power.
Yes.
So you got all the characteristics of the strong man, but then you got to have the characteristics of the environment, the landscape that's invited. And when those things come together, when they converge, it's not good.
Yeah, you get, right, there's trouble.
Thanks.
Cool.
Good.
Paul, can you unmute? Oops. Oops. Oh, keep on going, Bob, until Paul.
No, well, let's see. Carl, are you there?
Paul?
There I am.
There you are. Okay.
Okay. Well, sorry I missed the first two classes.
That's
because
okay.
I thought this was going to be an extension of the rise of strongmen worldwide, not an anti-Trump diatribe, which nobody really likes Donald Trump, but this is ridiculous. Anyway, the some of the threads that bear on the rise of a strong man, and my experiences, of course, have been all in Latin America, and we've had quite a large number of so-called strong evil men in Latin America, mostly rising from very poor, a very large differentiation between the haves and the have-nots. And ultimately, something particularly catastrophic will happen, as you say, and that it gives room for this strong man who is going to cure all our ills. I mean, before Trump, we had Frank Roosevelt. Let's not forget him and the New Deal. That raised a huge outcry among many people in the US. And some of the earlier things that went on. So it's interesting, to say the least. And one must be careful. But I'd like to hear more about the incidents of, generally speaking, the rise of other strong men in other places. And although there's a great similarity, it would be more interesting. That's all I got.
Yeah, well, next week we're gonna look at Hitler. So, we'll
Farmer.
look at his story, and we'll follow that with Pinochet and Mobutu, and then Orban and Putin.
And Gaddafi.
I'm sorry?
And Gaddafi.
No, I'm not going to do Gaddafi, but he certainly is one that's there.
And there's Trujillo.
And he is one who gets crushed by the Arab Spring, because as you open up these things, you get people rise up against the strong man and eventually crush him.
Yeah. Linda wants to know what was Mussolini's downfall and what happened afterwards.
The downfall was the war with Ethiopia. Italy takes a brutal beating. Their economic circumstances are very difficult, and eventually, you get enough people die in a war that it's easy to get people ginned up for war until the body bags come back. And then there's suddenly a rethinking, and a new morality comes about, and that was the downfall of Mussolini. They people rose up, attacked him, and strung him up in the square. So he was hung.
Bob, you got your hand up.
Oh, I didn't mean to have it still up.
Okay. And Ralph and Gail, I cut you both off, but now if you guys got anything you guys want to add, go for it. Either one, just put up your hand. Or Jessica, do you have something?
Sorry, no, I was just getting ready to turn my video on to say thank you, Sal.
Okay.
I'm just kind of planning ahead.
That's right. That's right.
Okay.
Very good. Thank you, Jessica.
Yeah, Ralph, are you good? Or you got something else?
No, we're good. Yeah.
And Gail?
Well, no, we're good. I didn't mean to. Yeah,
Oh, you guys are fine. I just wanted to give everybody a chance and then come back.
right.
Not a problem at all.
Thanks, Dave.
Yes, and thank you, Sal.
Thank
Jump
you.
for a minute.
Thanks, Al.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I'm
So
good.
if everybody,
Everybody be safe. We'll see you all next week.
yeah,
Yep.
hold on one quick second. Let me say I'm doing everything right now. Let me unmute everybody, but I gotta get that squared away. Sorry. And okay, ask auto mute. Everybody can unmute. Well, this one's unmute. Everybody can unmute and give Sal a warm
Okay.
applause for another sovereign class. We really appreciate it.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Right.
Thank you.
Good work, Sal.
Thanks, Sal.
Thanks,
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
We'll see you
See
next
you
week.
Sunday, Sal.